Okay, Taylor at Lakeside. Gonna give you a long video about your carburetors, and I thank you for your patience. I appreciate your working with me here. This is the throttle bracket cross shaft on that goes on the #1 carburetor. Here is your hot choke, goes on the #2 carburetor. Here are all the diamond-shaped and round grommets. That's where the carburetors bolt to the intake manifold. Here's the sleeves that go inside here to support the carburetors, and what happens is you got these sleeves, and then you take got a bunch of wave washers right here in this bag, and the wave washers butt up, they go between here, this diamond shape between here and the carburetors, and this acts as a limit stop so that the sleeves do not dig into the body of the carburetor. Got the copper washers for attaching the intake manifold and the copper coated washers, and the extra thick washers to go on the Siamese intake and exhaust headers, so that these extra thick ones carry the load. Let's see what else. I think all right, that takes care of all of, no, that's not all of it. Oh, right here. Okay. Throttle rods for the #1 and #2 carburetor. And this is the spacer and the grommets and washers, cupped washers for the carburetor support to the side of the block. And you said you got the bracket on the side of the block that this attaches to. All right, now then, let's get over here to the carburetors. We're going to go over the carburetors and get this situated properly here. Sorry about the poor cinematography action. Alright, here's your carburetors on the test engine. We'll go over a few things with those. Let's make sure I got this situated where you can see the synchrometer. Okay. Let's see. Fuel filtration. Let me go over a few things here. Fuel filtration is vitally important on these carburetors. You need to make sure that the fuel filter on the other side of the engine compartment is working, and that your fuel filter fuel selector valve unit is not leaking internally and allowing allowing the fuel system to lose prime, and it's not sucking air in through the cork that's inside the selector valve lever. And I've got a video on that if you need me to reference that for you. In terms of mounting the carburetors, always secure this fitting right here on the float bolt cover, and then use this fitting here to undo the fuel lines or to attach them. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you take the chance of ripping out the fuel float bolt cover. Another thing that's maybe not evident to everybody is the choke levers go to the center. These can be put on backwards, and so make sure the choke levers go to the center. Also, once the carburetors are mounted, leave them loose and then install your air log, and then wiggle the air log in place and get the carburetors to settle in place, and then snug down the carburetors at the top here to hold position, so when you pull the air log off, the carbs don't shift. And the reason for that is because there's enough movement in these carburetors up and down, left and right, that you just slap them on there and bolt them down, the air log will not fit. The alignment here, they will not fit on the stud. So fit the air log loosely first, and then snug down the carburetors. This is a true cold start. 61 degrees out. 61 degrees. Everything's that's 60 degrees. So everything's cold soaked. So we have a cold start video on these carburetors. There's a reason that Mercedes put a priming lever on the fuel pump on the opposite side of the engine, and that's so that a person can go in there and prime the fuel pump and prime the carburetors and get fuel up to them. And they should have put an electric fuel pump on the car, but they didn't. So after the car sits for about a week or 10 days, you're going to need to, the customer is going to need to go in there and actuate the priming lever on the fuel pump to make sure you got fuel up into the carburetors. So I'm going to do that right now. And I'm going to bump it over because alright, and what you have to do is bump it over until the priming push rod is off the cam, and you can get some movement on the fuel pump. It works off a cam at the top of the oil pump, and if it's on the cam, then there's no resistance on the lever, on the priming lever on the fuel pump. So that's you're gonna have to explain that to the customer. Now then, let's see. We got cold start. Switch. Let's see. Switch on. Choke. Now, notice when I'm choking it, I'm actually moving this rod right here. Your choke is essentially the butterflies closing off the throat and then accelerating the carburetors. And that setting on the carburetors for the proper clearance on this lever on the carburetors is 15 thousandths. And that's a very critical measurement so that you make sure you've got movement on the throttle lever to actually have a cold choke idle on these things. Now you can't tune these, we cannot tune the carburetors until we get the engine up to temperature. But for cold, that's pretty damn impressive. So what we're going to do is warm up the engine. Okay, thermostat just opened up. And in order to tune these things properly, we always disconnect. As you can tell, we always disconnect so the carburetors are running independently of each other, so you know that you're adjusting carburetors and not fighting a linkage issue. And we want to make sure that our second barrel is closed. And you can see hardly any movement whatsoever down there. Second barrel is closed, no movement. Now we want to make sure we've got synchronized airflow through each throat. So right now it looks like it's 5. And that's a little bit below 5, so we can cure that by increasing so we adjust here, bounce up the idle just a smidge. There we are at 5. Now we want to make sure our idle mixture screws are adjusted properly. And this is screwed right back here. And you screw it in a little bit, screw it out a little bit until you get your best idle. And I'll demonstrate how the idle goes downhill when it's in the wrong place. Alright, you can see here the idle degrade. Idle's degrading again. All we want to do is get right in the middle where the best operation is. Same with the first barrel, first carburetor. And next thing you want to do is make sure you snap on your linkage that the idle does not change. That's why this is on a turnbuckle back here, so you can dial it in exactly. Alright, idle didn't change, and make sure you don't get any popping backfire. Now, I may have the idle set a little low, but that's just to demonstrate how nicely the carburetors operate. Idle should be around 750 to 1000. But got nice carburetors. Do a hot start. I believe I've got you a very nice set of carburetors, and again, thank you so much for your patience.